Hey there everyone, and welcome back. This is Camzilla51 reviewing Takara's Generations Fall of Cybertron Bruticus. Bruticus has risen in fame since Fall of Cybertron, taking center stage as most popular gestalt. But in a sad contrast to this fame, his previous toy releases have been very controversial, and most have been very unsatisfying. Will Takara's shiny chunk of plastic redeem ill feelings of the mold design? And is this the definitive Fall of Cybertron Bruticus to get? Let's get into the history and climate of this release. There's an annotation above if you already know and you'd like to skip this, but for those who are new, we'll review. The Combaticons are the Decepticons' strike force team. Think like SEALs. Whenever they want a mission done right, they send the Combaticons. The team members include Onslaught, the leader of the group, Blast Off, the crazy mad scientist who turns into the space shuttle, Vortex, the equally probably insane helicopter, Swindle, the savvy and slimy munitions dealer, and Brawl, the berserker. These 5 Combaticons combined into the mighty Bruticus, second only to Devastator. And with this gargantuan mammoth, Starscream managed to usurp Megatron and take over the Decepticons, even if it was for a little while, because Megatron kicked his ass. In other words, the Combaticons are not only an unstoppable force of nature, but they are masters of military strategy and efficiency. Rating, awesome. Since then, Bruticus got his most recent treatment in the Fall of Cybertron video game, otherwise abbreviated as FOC. Now, the game is currently out now, so I'm not going to give any spoilers, but it's pretty awesome. Now, the first toy that Hasbro released was at San Diego Comic-Con as an exclusive. Now, the fans were really upset at this, because this meant that it was incredibly limited. Scalpers would take a hold of this figure, resell it on eBay for incredibly large and inflated sums of money. Not fair for collectors. Especially since Hasbro announced its retail release, which is in these Fruit Loopy colors. The fans were disgusted, to say the least. Hasbro's only explanation was that kids like these bright, flashy colors. Well, no, if I was a kid in the toy aisle, I'd be like, that does not look anything like what he does in the video game. That's not right. Fans cried out because now they were almost certain that they would never own an FOC Bruticus with a game-accurate color scheme. For shame. And that's not even to mention the criticism that the actual engineering of the combined mode got. The torso looked small, people wished Onslaught was a Voyager size, which means a little bit bigger of a toy, to fill out the size of all these limbs. And the set as a whole looked entirely disproportionate. Henceforth, there was a flood of fan mode combinations, ranging from simple minor transformations to more severe and permanent modifications. Therefore, all that there is to be said about this figure's design, the transformation, and all of the individual details and accessories has already been accounted for. So the only thing that's really relevant to this release from Takara is the paint job. Not only is this release in game-accurate color scheme, but the details. Oh, the details. From turbines to lights to vents and exhaust, everything in the game is picked out beautifully here. Let me show you a little bit of what I mean. Let's take a look at Swindle first. Would you look at the shine on that metallic chest? It catches light so much differently than previous releases that were just cast in plastic. The face is painted and the eyes pop. Even the backside of his parts are painted with this metallic paint. And would you get a load of those wheels? Oh, yes. Not to mention the hidden paint features in his foot transformation. Get a load of this. In Swindle's foot mode, all you see is the black plastic of the foot, but when you turn it around to form the back of the car, then the yellow and silver pops out. It completes the rear end of the vehicle, and hides back away seamlessly. Next, let's move on to Brawl. Now this guy is my favorite out of the entire bunch. The jagged edges of his sculpt really make that metallic paint sing, because everything bounces and refracts off of every surface differently. He's got so many colors in his abdomen and his kneecaps that were absent before. I'm noticing details that I didn't even notice before. He's even got the extra paint apps on the tops of his shoulders to match the video game accuracy with the treads that are on his design. Next we'll look at Blast Off. Now Blast Off is probably the most radical color change from his retail release. But this means that he's the most accurate release of Blast Off to the video game model. Unfortunately, he's got the least amount of shiny paint on him. But he doesn't stick out like a sore thumb. all of his details are still picked out, with multiple colors in the chest and shoulders alone. The wings, fins, and engine bits pop and look beautiful and realistic. And it even seems that the opacity is increased, so that the ambient light doesn't make it glow so much as regular plastic does. Next we'll look at Vortex. And oh god, is this one a work of art or what? Like the rest of his Japanese brethren, it's obvious that budget cuts were not a part of his design. Look at all the detail in here. Again, details pop that I couldn't even notice before on the retail version. And he looks just as good from behind. Look at that backpack. That does not look like kibble. That looks like it's meant to be there. Now normally I slavishly praise Takara for all of their close attention to detail, including, you even got engine details right here that weren't even picked out on the first one. This is amazing. Even little purple details in here like this. But it's not perfect. It's not perfect. Where you see back here, where you've got these purple stripes that go all the way across, right in the middle there's just one missing. I'm only complaining because it's Takara and they've done such a wonderful job everywhere else. It seems like a small oversight to me, but I can overlook it. Lastly, we'll take a look at the big leader himself, Onslaught. Before, Onslaught looked like a blueberry with splashes of lime on him. But this guy's muted blue-gray plastic color looks militant. But that is not to say it's dull in the slightest. He gets the same detail-enriched treatment throughout his entire design, going all the way from the 3 colors in his forearms to the pinstriped and highlighted wheels. And his gun is turned from a lime into a nice metal sheen. This thing actually looks like metal, doesn't even look like plastic. That's amazing to me. In this set, the metallic paint almost looks candied with an increased plastic opacity. It's got a beautiful sparkly fleck, and because no light passes through these objects, they look dense. Therefore, they look heavy and real. Incoming light refracts off of every surface differently, but I do offer a warning. With this you must be careful, because the paint is thicker than the initial plastic, which means it's more susceptible to scratching and damage, especially when it comes to transformation and all of those tabs. And it's not entirely perfect. We're not talking about a masterpiece here, but some edges don't exactly meet the sculpt, and there are very minor oversights. But given the presence of this thing on a shelf, I don't mind in the slightest. Now let's talk about that combined mode. It's pretty general consensus that this design of transformation scheme that Hasbro has come up with for the combined mode isn't exactly ideal. But I'm just humoring you and humoring the designers for showing how this transformation scheme looks on the new Bruticus, because it shows how much a color scheme can actually make me take a form seriously. With these colors, yes, this looks like a giant pile of mess and toy with all these garish, vibrant colors. This looks bad. However, with all of these metallic paints and the opacity increased, this makes me take the design seriously. But I do acknowledge that this is not for everyone, and there have been tons of fan modes made out there, and doubtless you'll pick your own. But just for the sake of it, I'm going to show you how I personally transform it, so that you can get this to look a whole lot better. First, we'll start with Swindle, the right leg of Bruticus. I'm going to keep this here for the official transformation, and I'm going to show you how to turn it with this one. So, first what we want to do, flip the feet under, like that, to give the flush back end. Then disconnect it, as usual. Bring this up a little bit so we have a little bit of space to work. Then untab the arms, and rotate the entire waist around. You're going to be getting him kneeling down. Then to fill out a little gap, pull out these hands back here that were originally for the Scramble City concept. And then flip these around to the back here. Gives a little bit of detail on the back of the leg. And then tuck the hands in behind these wheels right here. Then this shield, this chest hood, will come and sit down here. And then you've got a nice flush front, and it's all nice and compact. Next we'll deal with Brawl, the left leg of Bruticus. Now while this mode that Hasbro came up with is very sturdy and things lock in everywhere, the problem with this one is that there's paint on all of these tabs. So so that means you risk chipping. With this one it was okay, there's nothing to chip. But with this one, you really, really have to be careful if you want to use this. So the next way to get this into My Better Fan mode is flip this up. And this kind of seals off the back end. By the way, really careful with inserting these tabs up here. So then we can unpeg this, bring it up to the mid portion of the tank, just like that. Flip in these hands that served as the heels, and I like to flip those out of the way, and then bring these around to form the actual foot. The coolest thing about this is it's actually accurate to the show model, or the game model. And that is a wonderful, wonderful foot. Now when it comes to Vortex, you don't have a whole lot of change. It's just shrinking and moving other parts around. So here's what we're going to do. This whole part that serves as the extended elbow, we're going to untab that and just compress it up a little bit. You still have a little bit of an elbow joint to work with, so that's all good and fine. Then untab these arms and move this one over here and up onto here. And then move this other arm in place and move the propeller. Just right there. This makes the propeller more accessible for, fictionally, Bruticus to use. And this panel up here helps to bulk up the upper shoulder, while making this entire thing a lot more conservative. Now Blast Off, on the other hand... oh, that was funny. I didn't mean that. Anyways, Blast Off, on the other hand, is a lot more complex. The trouble with Blast Off is that A, he's too long. B, he doesn't really match any of the source material. This, yes, this is supposed to be up on Blast Off for the shoulder, but this is supposed to be rotated around, and it serves as kind of a gun wrist, so really it should only be this short. Now this whole thing does not rotate around, it's impossible. But at least I found a way to make this, with the jet thrusters right here, be some sort of wrist, and that works. So here's what we're going to do. Split these legs. We lose this giant hand, but there's a way to compensate for it. Fold the hand away. Then have the shins. Flip these around. And get them out of the way for now. Next, what we're going to do is bring out the robot's forearms. Just like this. Take this one and rotate it up here like this. This is going to serve as the real hand. And then this other one is just going to fill in the gap right there. So then fold these back down, tab them properly into place. It's just giving me a little trouble here. There we go. And where there was no elbow joint before, now we're going to form one right here and rotate that around. So this is now that. Now it's a very thick forearm here. Looks very powerful. And how we cover up that little hand problem right there is we can just simply put the gun in the hand. You cannot even tell. Okay, now, I lied. Onslaught is the easiest one to change or convert. And all we're going to do to him is a tiny little change, but it makes all the difference. See these little arms right here? Twink. Just like that. That simple. But what it does is it fills out this torso right here. It makes all of this look like a cohesive bulk of mass. Before, he had this, kind of big chest and tiny little waist. You could see in between there. But with these moved down, it looks like an entire cohesive chest. Full of chunk. And now you have the comparison of the two side by side. Now, with all of these together, you start to see all the improvements come in place. Because the torso is filled out and all these limbs are a little shorter and a little chunkier, this actually looks proportionate to itself. With this scheme of transformation, everything actually looks like it has a bit of weight to it. Like he looks like he's really heavy on the ground, like he's putting force on this. This would be fun to animate, if not for the ratchet joints. That's a little shame. That's always a hard thing for animators to get around. But at least he looks heavy. This, on the other hand, well, we've made our peace. The only thing I can say in favor of this one is that there's a lot less risk for actually chipping any paint. Because with this, though it looks gorgeous, well, you do have to be careful about all of this. Now this forms Brawl's shoulders and everything that's displayed in the front, and this is the entire back half of Swindle's car. I really don't want to scratch these up. So if you really like this transformation scheme with all of the changes that I've made, then I would suggest displaying this on a surface like glass or plastic, not something like rough wood, raw wood, or any other thing that might damage any of that paint, because you want to preserve that. This is a very expensive figure and it's well worth every penny. Now, in terms of the size change, he does get a little bit shorter. Now, you could say, well, give us a size comparison. But the thing is, that means that you'd have to buy more toys, and not everybody has the same toys. So, more people have rulers than toys. I'm going to compare it to a ruler. So the original measurement up there is about 10 3/4 at the top of the head and 11 1/2 at the top of the gun spire. With the new transformation, however, he's about 10 inches at the top of the head and 10 1/2 at the top of the gun spires. So it's not really that much of a sacrifice. Obviously, when it comes to a figure of this caliber, price point is key. The San Diego Comic-Con version is not as good as this one, is even rarer, and is highly overpriced. The retail version is the cheapest and was about $100, which is $20 for each figure. Now, considering the cost of deluxes and the cost of shipping nowadays, that is actually fair. This Takara version is $174.99 at bbts.com, Big Bad Toy Store, which is where I got mine. And when you break it down, that's $30 for each deluxe, which, again, you're importing figures from Japan, so you're talking $30 per deluxe. That's also very fair and the norm for the figures in this line. Takara's Generations Fall of Cybertron Bruticus is not for kids, but for collectors. It's not for play, but display. This is the most beautiful paint job this set has ever had, but that means that it's delicate. Consider this like a mass-produced custom commission. It makes the San Diego Comic-Con version look like a simple retail figure. If you're looking for a game-accurate toy for play, SDCC is your route. But if you're looking for a display piece that is best of the best, cream of the crop, this is your ticket. The price may turn off many, but given the compromise, you must decide. Until next time, this has been Camzilla51 making my triumphant return. And things are about to get a whole lot different around here. So stay tuned, especially you animators and customizers out there. I've got something coming that's right up your alley. A lot of cool things have happened, and I've got a lot of stories to tell. But until then, I'll catch you later.